On some mornings, you may wake up and feel as if you've returned to the world, but you haven't quite made it there yet. Seated on the edge of the bed, you gaze through the partially opened curtains, observing the light filtering through the trees as if it were a recollection of long-lost ideas. There's no obvious melancholy, but you can't shake the feeling that your spirit has strayed too far into the unknown. This isn't just an occasional feeling for the intuitive introvert. It is a subtle truth that beats under all communication, each and every quiet, every second of stillness. As they make their way through the world, they carry an invisible lantern that illuminates not the road ahead, but the hidden passages. In contrast to extroverts who seek validation from the outside world, introverts who are intuitive go within to uncover the truth. Dreams that appear to communicate through symbols and images that emerge illogically but feel more genuine than anything spoken aloud have a greater impact on their lives than words spoken aloud ever could. Not much is said by them about what they observe, not because they are unable to express themselves, but because society seldom pays attention, and thus they withdraw, not out of animosity, but out of respect. They hold their knowledge in high regard because they know that some things cannot be said in a casual setting without risking being misunderstood. Carl Jung watched this kind of conduct with a mix of admiration and caution. The introvert with a strong intuitive side gets her information not from statistics or opinions, but from the subtle currents of her own spirit. While others are around, unexpected information may suddenly be revealed to them. A mental map, a piece of someone's narrative, a secret sorrow that resurfaces like a perfume. There's no magic involved. No, it's not crazy. One who is attuned to their inner world has this profound perception. Unfortunate outcomes, such as being misunderstood, ignored, or stigmatized, accompany this talent. They learn to be silent keepers of knowledge, burdened with facts that the majority will never see. Learning about intuitive introverts is more than just putting a type on a person. Also concerning the observation of a complete inner cosmos, a deep, challenging, and subtly brilliant one. Perhaps we also begin to understand ourselves in that stillness. Sound, the subtle discomfort of discord, is a particularly disorienting sensation for introverts who are intuitive. To be full of purpose while being enveloped by a world that hardly ever speaks their language. Envision yourself in possession of a delicate and vibrant thread of brilliant insight. Unfortunately, people always seem perplexed when you try to extend it to them, ignoring someone or smiling politely but not making eye contact. Neither superiority nor arrogance are at play here. The pain of seeing things that other people have not seen yet, experienced in silence. Carl Jung described the introverted intuitive as someone who is sensitive to the symbolic undercurrents rather than the surface currents of life. Not only do they have different perspectives, but they also think differently. Like poetry etched into the soul, they absorb what others might pass by without noticing. Still, this talent has a way of drawing people in circles. What they consider can be difficult to categorize and whose emotions can be difficult to pin down. As they make their way through a throng, they might experience a long-lost melancholy without understanding why, or they might overhear a passing comment that reveals some hidden truth. A state of psychic saturation is brought about by these experiences, in which one's inner world becomes more prominent than one's outer world. Consider the perceptive introvert who prefers to keep to themselves while eating lunch with coworkers. It seems like a casual get-together on the outside, but deep down, she can feel tensions building. The hidden emotional dynamics between individuals who believe they are concealing everything through their words and the weight of regret. Nobody is judged by her. She just sees it that way. However, in a society that prioritizes rational thought over emotional response, how does one articulate such insights? Jung cautioned that people with this personality type tend to have trouble not just understanding themselves, but also being understood. As a result, they are hesitant to open up and share, and their retreat is motivated by fear rather than pride. Everything they hold dear feels sacred, and letting it all hang out can feel like dumping precipitation on a parched landscape that is ill-equipped to handle its water crisis. However, change is possible within that conflict. When they stop attempting to be understood and start valuing their symbolic language, their gift will start to flourish, both internally and externally. Being an intuitive introvert does not mean having an instantaneous light bulb moment, like the moon peeking out from behind the clouds, gradually illuminating the landscape. It takes its time to unfold. The intuitive's journey is made possible by music. What makes an introvert even more enigmatic is the fact that their eyes dart straight into the symbolic core of an experience rather than resting on surface details. They see a message where others see a moment. They have begun to decipher the stillness beneath the surface where the noise flickers. Introverted intuition boils down to this. It goes beyond the physical world to explore the mental images triggered by the external movements of life. Not just in the eyes, but in every movement, look, and shift in vocal intonation, a vision can be reawakened. The spiritual auditorium. No, these dreams are real. These are not your typical dreams. Like a mist rising from a hidden spring, they carry truths that cannot be explained, yet feel completely real. They're profound imprints from the collective unconscious. Envision yourself at a table with a friend, coworker, or complete stranger when, out of the blue, a mental image pops into your head. Holding something priceless, a man stands on the brink of a cliff, his back to the world. Find a strength to let go. There is no accompanying speech or bodily indication to back it up. Their energy, their hesitance, their unseen weight, all of it has piqued your interest and opened a doorway inside you. Rather than pondering this picture, you experience it. It comes fully formed, encased in metaphor and emotion. I get the impression that this person is shackled by their grief. They refuse to let go of something that is no longer beneficial to them. You should not try to enlighten them on this. So you choose to remain quiet, but now. You witness not only their public persona, but also the truth that their body has subconsciously communicated. And this understanding transforms all. According to Carl Jung, introverted intuition is sensitive not to external stimuli, but to internal feelings aroused by those stimuli. Prospects outside of oneself are not pursued by the intuitive. Every interaction with life is like lighting a match in the dark, exposing the outline of something ancient and unseen. They listen for the stirrings within, as if that were the case. As a result, their perception extends beyond the present moment. Like a myth, it reveals hidden truths and patterns that our conscious mind hasn't even begun to recognize. But there is a price to pay for such understanding. Walking alone with a clarity that cannot always be spoken, bearing this kind of vision is a heavy burden in a proof-addicted world. Still, it is in this seclusion that they perform their holy labor. Retaining the image, following its development, and having faith that what emerges from within is not lunacy, but meaning, murmuring the form of some unseen reality lurking just beyond the surface. Music, despite having a clear vision, intuitive introverts frequently lose touch with where their ideas originate. Their gift is paradoxical in this regard. Their emotional body may feel disconnected from the vivid details they perceive. There are many impressions, symbols, and prophetic glimpses in their inner world, but they almost never stop to consider the personal significance of these pictures. One possible vision that the intuitive might have is a crumbling. Feel the sacred weight of a cathedral or a dying tree without realizing it is a reflection of their own spiritual weariness. The unconscious seems to provide a plethora of valuable insights, which are meticulously recorded without any claim to ownership. A life of perpetual significance that seldom touches the heart coexists with this beautiful landscape. However, there's also an odd emptiness. Think about the lady who goes for walks in the same park every day, but never gets a ray of sunshine on her skin. Metaphors waltz through her thoughts. On a fence, she spots a crow, while having the sensation of a tale being told. Knows that change or death is on the horizon, but she doesn't question the hollowness in her chest or the parchedness of her eyes, despite the pain in her soul. She writes poetry, elaborate visions, and journals nonstop. She is hesitant to answer questions about her well-being, though. Lost. There is no evidence of stupidity here. This is the intuitive distancing from one's physical form. They resemble aimless couriers who never peruse the letters they bring, because their focus is both inward and unrooted in the personal. According to Jung, intuitive introverts have a keen awareness of their inner world, but a hazy grasp of their own physical and psychological wounds. As if swimming through a legendary sea, they go from one image to another, but they never quite wonder if the tempest they see is within themselves. They may experience detached insights, numb emotions, and surreal visions as a result of this disconnection. They have the ability to heal others through their profound truths, but they choose to ignore their own internal suffering. However, the fact remains that everything starts to change the moment they become aware of not only their inner image but also their role within it. When individuals tune out external symbols and tune in to the rhythm of their own soul, the dream has landed. Its foundation is that foundation. Not only does the intuitive introvert become a witness to realities, but they also take part in their own recovery. The more time an intuitive introvert spends introspecting, the more they come into contact with the ancient foundation of human memory, music, a reverberation of the ancient emblems. Through the ages, like hushed conversations in a dream. These are not abstract notions or figments of the imagination, but rather tangible impressions culled from the depths of the human mind. Instead of ideas, they seem like visions. Instead of reasoning, they seem like myth. They seem to materialize completely at the last minute, even though their origins may go back 1,000 lifetimes. The paradox, though, is right here. The more intense these visions get, the more alone the seer might feel. All around them, practical rhythms are at work, as archetypes torment them. There are few friends with whom to share the profound meaning offered by the Great Mother, the injured child, and the everlasting traveler. Picture this. A man enters a serene museum and pauses before a crumbling sculpture. For some, it is just stone. It serves as an entrance for him. He weeps for reasons he cannot fathom. He can't remember ever living, but something about the carved figure brings back a memory, a desire that does not belong solely to him. He carries the burden of countless generations in his, is more genuine than anything outside those walls, as he feels this moment in his chest, which is silent and unprovable. His words falter as he attempts to confide in a friend, unable to hold the weight of the truth. Knowing but not always being known, seeing ahead while walking alone. This is the joy and the pain of being intuitive. Still, Jung points out that our internal perception is not separate from the external world, but rather intricately interwoven with it. Introverts with a strong intuitive side do more than daydream about the future. They have happenings in life prior to the rest of the world catching up. When a soul is about to awaken, when a truth is about to be buried, or when a change is near, they may be able to sense it. However, they run the danger of being ensnared by the very pictures they're supposed to decipher if they let their sense of reality slip and perception take over. What they create, others can't put a name to. They transform into indecipherable symbols the moment they separate. The next step is to circle back, to set the archetype in place, and to mold the glimmer, to multitask as both conduit and interpreter. By doing so, they unite the immutable with the concrete. And in doing so, they not only become awakened, but they're the awakening itself. Perception becomes insufficient for intuitive introverts at some point in their journey, as mentioned in the music. The capacity to perceive unseen patterns underlying events, which once seemed like a sacred gift, starts to stir a deeper unease. With a serene intensity, the once brilliant and unspoiled visions now draw inward. Should be lived, not merely seen. The evolution of the soul has reached a turning point at this point. When one's inward focus yearns for more than just aesthetics or wisdom, It starts to rumble for purpose and accountability. The once flourishing intuitive starts to feel the weight of moral responsibility as she navigates symbols and revelations with greater ease. Why is this vision requesting that I do this? Given what I have witnessed, what am I destined to become? Some people find this change confusing. Questions of why and how have supplanted those of what. What should I do next? A woman who used to find solace in creating ethereal landscapes through painting now stands helpless in front of her canvas. What was once a torrent of water is now pleading for fire. Her dreams are more somber and ominous. Something is waiting to be answered both inside and outside of her every morning when she wakes up. Making something beautiful isn't enough anymore. It raises a question that she must grapple with. The hues on her palette seem to be resonating with something more profound than her own imagination. She feels calling. When this becomes clear, the artist undergoes a metamorphosis. Raw, symbolic, and possessed by her own myth, her art takes on a life of its own. Its once easy comprehension has given way to a pulsating urgency that demands global attention. Jung recognized this unique awakening as a turning point. When an introvert with a strong intuitive sense moves toward integration, they stop being satisfied to simply receive insight and start living out their inner wisdom. However, there's a price to pay for this embodiment. In the instant that the intuitive attempts to translate aspirations into reality, they encounter confusion. Their language turns into something too abstract, too personal. They talk with an emotional tone rather than a rational one. Not being able to express the raging fires inside might make them feel like refugees. And yet, they converse, not as abstract ideas, but as calls to action for the rest of humanity to join them in awakening. They continue to create and share their visions. By doing so, they enter a sacred mission, one in which they are not merely observers, but actively engage. Despite this, although the wilderness is devoid of sound, their voice serves as the precursor to a seismic shift. Sound, an odd paradox, emerges as the intuitive introvert sinks further and deeper into their own inner world, one that they seldom encounter until it betrays them. Notwithstanding their deep understanding and symbolic perception, an unacknowledged shadow surfaces, drawing them back to the physical, to their sense of raw sensation, and to the earthly concerns they had previously ignored. The further they go into the void of I, the more the subconscious wants equilibrium, and it doesn't beg nicely. Insists on it. The intuitive unknowingly finds themselves ensnared by inexplicable compulsions and unable to break free of sensory reactions they once dismissed as insignificant. Someone who used to spend most of their time thinking about ideas might suddenly become very sensitive to noise, experience unexplained physical pain, or develop an obsession with someone or something they can't let go of. They seem to have grown weary of being a free spirit. Now insists on getting down on one knee. A subtle but essential readjustment. This is the mind's subtle defiance. It was a primitive but necessary grounding through archaic sensation, which Jung referred to as a compensation from the unconscious. The unconscious mind pulls the conscious mind back through embodied experience in direct proportion to the degree to which the conscious mind fights against the demands of the outside world. Consider a reclusive man who has dedicated his life to writing about spiritual symbolism. He has a small but devoted following. Recognize his genius. Insomnia and unexplained nausea have been bothering him recently, though. His fixation intensifies as he becomes preoccupied with sounds like the floor's creaking, scents like paper, and the feel of his clothing against his skin. He is illiterate. He gets no respite. The unyielding demands of the physical realm possess him, rather than the gods of inspiration. At this point in time, he has not come to terms with the fact that what he is experiencing is not punishment, but rather a demand to bring his fragmented self back together. And the worst part is that people frequently fail to recognize this internal division. People around them perceive them as emotionally distant, icy, and unintelligible. Underneath a reserved exterior, though, is a spirit that is bewildered by the abundance of its perceptions and the isolation that comes from being unable to put them into words. Their inner light is so brilliant that it acts as a shield against the warmth of humans. They beg to be heard, but no one understands what they say. But if they can realize that their obsessions are invitations rather than betrayals, if they can. The real process of integration begins when they come to terms with their sensitivity, which is not a sign of weakness, but rather the voice of the body calling out to the soul. Being a bridge between worlds, rather than merely a seer, is possible only when the visionary returns to earth, to their own feelings and human frailties. Listening to music is one thing, but putting words to what you see is another entirely. For the intuitive introvert, this is the silent agony of harboring a musical composition of wisdom that defies categorization by language tools. When asked to describe what they see, words water it down like attempting to contain a tempest, but what they really perceive is a living, multi-layered, and frequently timeless vision. The sacred dissonance between felt and utterable things is the root cause of this incapacity to express, not indifference or hubris. In their world, images, impressions, and resonances rather than syllables bring meaning by arousing something more primal than the intellect. Yet, our method-obsessed culture views this lack of noise as a sign of failure. Anything that cannot be demonstrated logically or taught using formulas is rejected. Therefore, the intuitive is frequently disregarded and misunderstood. Despite this apparent detachment, a paradoxical gift lies within. Because of their reserve, intuitive people reflect back to us the hidden aspects of existence that mainstream thinking has ignored. The intuitive's life is like that of a parent whose deeds speak volumes. The introvert's quiet transmission of the inedible becomes their defining characteristic. You may think of her as the retired old lady who lives on the outskirts of town. Group speeches are rare for her, and she stays out of arguments and doesn't have any big ideas to offer. But their departure changes the moment someone comes to see her, even for a short while. Instead of being instructive, her presence has a transformative effect. Her eyes remain calm and reserved, as if to communicate, "I see beyond what you show, and I love what lives underneath it." Teaches through doing rather than through explaining. Even though she has never written anything and no one ever quotes her, her words are more remembered for the experience of being in her presence than for anything else. The introvert with a strong intuitive side does not live in a methodical era. Something more ancient, profound, and holy may be their rightful place. They are living proof that not all knowledge can be organized and that not all education starts with teaching in a society that values presence more than presentation. Nearness is all it takes to absorb some truths, but this does not release them from the responsibility of expressing themselves. They will constantly be forced to discover their voice by the constraints and difficulties of life. Not in order for them to fit in, but to understand. Not for them to put on a show, but to bond. Although remaining silent may shield their eyes from pollution, it also puts them at danger of feeling alone and hopeless. A person can connect different worlds just by speaking, no matter how clumsily. It is in this striving, this endeavor to incorporate a fragment of the limitless into the delicate container of shape that their serenity. Brilliance becomes something that is both observed and shared. Underneath the surface of each intuitive awakening, there is a subtle but essential battle. The incorporation of an innate, predetermined inner companion. In order for the dominant function to surface, its subtle counterpart must first be summoned from the depths. Balance is insisted upon by the mind, even though the intuitive may spend most of their time in vision, abstraction, or spiritual symbolism. In order to retain the individual, it summons a supplementary function, which is frequently underdeveloped, rooted in the very essence of reality. This auxiliary factor is not an enemy, but an obedient companion whose job it is to keep the ship of perception from veering off course. Still, its murmurs go unheard or ignored because they use a different language. Not as luminous, not as lofty, but just as vital to completeness. An intuitive runs the danger of losing touch with reality if they ignore this supplementary voice and allow themselves to float too far into the abstract. Envision a guy whose days are filled with figurative visions and dreams, messages in silence, patterns where others perceive chaos, and the stirring of destiny beneath the surface of everyday events are all things he can perceive. Archetypes abound in his inner world. However, his body starts to fight back, unconsciously at first. Noise makes him angry, and he has a heightened sensitivity to smells, textures, and bodily sensations. Being in a large group wears him down. Lights are too intense. Disarray in his environment is something he simply cannot bear. He feels as if his senses, which he had previously disregarded, have suddenly turned on him and are demanding to be seen. This hypersensitivity is not going to work against him, but he fails to recognize it. It is the unconscious's compensatory sensation that is clamoring to be a part of his journey. His mind isn't trying to get him, but rather to keep him safe by grounding him in the reality he's been ignoring in his quest for truth. This is a profound psychological revelation. It doesn't matter how good a function is, dominance always has repercussions. Even when oppressed from within, the human spirit will not abide tyranny by itself. We invite discord when we give dominion to just one aspect of our mind. Especially for the intuitive introvert, it is essential to realize that their secondary function, whether it be sensation, thought, or something else entirely, serves to amplify rather than diminish their talent. Intuition should not be abandoned, but rather grounded, translated, and refined through contrast as part of this integration process. A more profound harmony develops when the secondary function is embraced as a guide rather than a defect. Though it now walks, the vision is still there. It discovers its form. As a result, it can be understood by other people and used in real life. Here, the intuitive not only discovers the hidden realms, but also learns how to live in harmony with them. The structure of inner unity is now revealed by what was once perceived as internal division. When the soul is no longer contained within any one function, it starts to sing in chords instead of notes. And the self, which was once frozen in contemplation, starts to beat to the beat of life. Soundtrack. An intuitive introvert's journey does not culminate in towardsness rather than perfection. Learning to stand at the intersection of opposing forces, the visionary and the earthly, the eternal and the fleeting, is more important than repressing the ancient voices that emerge from the depths or bringing the unconscious into a civilized form. This is the secret science of mind magic. Not to push aside any aspect of one's soul in favor of another, but to let the most ancient parts shine brightly while keeping the most refined parts grounded in reality. The internal realm becomes no longer a refuge, but a reflection of reality. A crack starts to appear. The once reclusive dreamer starts to sound friendly. Listening without withdrawing is a new skill for the once misunderstood thinker. Subtle, frequently silent, but constant as the auxiliary function unfolds patiently. It goes from feeling disjointed to symphonic. Being completely understood is no longer necessary. Living in harmony with truth is all that is required. Meeting the unconscious is enough. There's no need to overcome it. On the cusp of the intuitive's first steps, being present alongside the shadowy aspects of our psyches, rather than trying to control them, allows us to better understand their ancient function. The clarity one finds in titles and textbooks is not this. Like pausing before responding or making room for another without hastily fixing, it lands softly behind the eyes. The pursuit of life gives way to a more in-depth exploration. Instead of existing as a collection of disparate possibilities, the self is now woven into a dynamic tapestry. There, in the stillness of knowingness. Family, there is no ultimate meeting place. There is merely a permanent return home. So, let this be a gentle invitation not to run away from the world in pursuit of your dreams, but to gracefully bring them into being. Allow the dream animals to accompany you on your journey. Sow the seeds of your wisdom. And keep this in mind if you ever feel completely alone. You connect the present with the future by just being here. I extend an invitation to you, if even a single word here touched you deeply, if this message moved you, to share your thoughts in the space provided. Has the presence of that one soul ever made you feel at home? Or are you still on the holy road leading you to your true self? Even if it's unfinished, your story has the potential to be someone else's guiding light, the sign they were seeking but didn't realize they had. And if you or someone you care about is secretly fighting the delusion that love is always painful, that giving up control is necessary for true connection, or that they don't deserve peace, then you should listen to them. Give them a copy of this video, a hand. Let me connect with those who are in need of a reminder that true love does not necessitate our diminution. There is no need to give one's soul up for genuine connection. Plus, the bond we develop with our own self-knowledge is the most important one we'll ever have. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell before you leave. In this realm, we delve into the depths of things, discovering the subconscious, the intricate web of the mind, and the ways in which each relationship mirrors our own growth. Leave a comment below if you have a topic, question, or injury that you would like us to address in upcoming videos. You're the reason this place is alive. We value and greatly appreciate your opinion. Not only did you show up to this video, but you also showed up to the sacred labor of remembering your true self to your inner work. Your spirit will know, not in terror, but in tranquility when the right person shows up. Keep this in mind at all times. However, in the meanwhile, make your partner your closest confidant. Nurture one soul. Yes, that is the groundwork. Home is where it's at. All things real originate from that state of completeness. Until our paths cross again, I will be by your side.